How do? Welcome back. Well, it's Brew Day, and today I'm brewing a very sort of old school American pale ale, somewhat inspired by the world famous Sierra Nevada pale ale, which sort of kicked off the craft beer revolution, or so the story goes. I've got my steeping water here. It's come up to temperature. I'm going to, there's 3 litres here, just 3 litres today, because I've been reading online that if you use too much water, and I used to use 5 litres, which is the maximum this will hold. Let me just bring it down so you can see it. This holds 5 litres, but I'm only using 3 today because I've heard that if you steep in too much water, that it will affect the efficiency of the steep, so you won't get the same sweetness, you won't get the same colour from the grains. You can also extract tannins, which is something you don't want. This is steeping now at 67 degrees. I've already put the grains inside. I'm using 250 grams of crystal, which is 140 EBC or 50 Lovibond, and 150 Munich malt. And they're in there now, they're steeping away, and in about another 20 minutes they should be ready to transfer to the kettle. And then I'll top that up to about 10 litres, add in the dry malt, bring it to a boil, and well, Brew Day will have started. So I'll come back to you when I'm ready to transfer these grains. Okay, the grains have finished steeping. It's been half an hour. I've turned the urn off, so now it's just a case of transferring the liquid into the kettle. I've put 7 litres of water into the kettle, and with the 3 litres that's in the urn, that should give me 10 litres. So when I add the dry malt extract, I'm going to be adding about 1.5 kilogram, or half of the actual amount I'm going to be using. I should start with around about 11.5, 12 litres in here, and that's usually what I aim for. Okay, so we will take these grains out, and I'm going to just let them drain over the side of the kettle, because we don't want to lose any of that sweet malty goodness, those flavours and colour. And then basically, being careful not to get the wire wet, I'm just going to pour this straight in to the kettle. Watching my hands because it's hot. Oh, I don't know if you can see the colour. It's a beautiful, beautiful crystal toffee colour. And that's my false bottom. So I'll just be careful. There we go. I don't want the false bottom to go in. Okay. So really all I've got to do now is bring this up to the boil. And when it gets close to the boil, when it's around about 70-80 degrees, I like to add the first lot of dry malt extract, and that's because it's easier to dissolve when it's colder. So I'm going to turn the heater on now, and I think these are finished draining pretty much, and then I'm going to turn the heater on, bring this up to a boil, and I'll come back to you. Well, the kettle now is coming up to about, well, just over 80 degrees. So I'm going to add the first addition of dry malt extract. The second half will be added when there's about 15 minutes left to go, just to sterilise. And I do this because, of course, if you add all the dry malt extract into just half the liquid, you're going to impair hop utilisation. I used to, when I first started, and I didn't have this kettle, I had a big saucepan, and I used to add all the dry malt extract in one go in about 12 litres of water, and I was always wondering why my beers weren't bitter and why I wasn't getting a lot of sort of hop flavour. And it's simply because the gravity in the kettle was too high, and the higher the gravity the lower the hop utilisation. So if you're doing this what's called partial boil, where you're just really boiling half the liquid you require, then you should only use half the malt, so you try and keep the gravity the same as what's going to be in the fermenter, and that will ensure then that you get a really nice hop bitterness and flavour and aroma. So it's really just a case of stirring this in, and because it's not boiling, it's not going to clump up anywhere near as if it was boiling. I'm sure, especially if we brew kits and you use dry malt extract as your extra fermentables, and you put them in the fermenter and you add your hot water and it just goes to like concrete bricks. That's because the water is boiling. Whereas when it's just off the boil, or about 80 degrees, 90 degrees, it won't clump up anywhere near as much. I'm not bothered about that little bit there. I'm going to wash that anyway and weigh out some more dry malt extract. So there you go, there's actually no boulders in this because the water was about 80 degrees. Of course it's not now. Well, it's dropped to about 5 degrees, not too bad. There you go, I'm going to let that come to the boil now and then we'll add the hops. Welcome back. It's now at a really nice rolling boil, and so now it's time for the Centennial. This is 10% alpha acid and I'm using 25 grams, and they will boil for 1 hour. There they are in the, oh, you can't see them, but they're in there, and it's just a case of just tossing them in now, and then we just wait 45 minutes and then we have a second edition. Well, one of the great things about home brewing is once the boil has started, there's very little for you to do except a bit of cleaning up and things like this. So what I'm going to do is drink a pale ale. I'm going to drink this Sierra Nevada pale ale, the classic pale ale, which I've sort of based my brew on. This uses Magnum for bittering and I think some Pearl, whereas I'm just using the Centennial because that's all I had. So let's crack it open. Glass is over here, excuse me. Let's crack it open and we'll see what it tastes like. And then when this beer's finished, I might do a side by side. Not that it's a clone, but just as an example of a classic old school American pale ale. That looks beautiful. Amber colour, a light copper amber sort of colour. Nice frothy white head there on the top. Aroma. Not as punchy as I thought. It's actually quite muted. Little hint of citrus, but aroma wise not that much, which has surprised me. But there you go, I think mine will be more hoppy aroma wise because I'm doing a whirlpool stand and I'm doing a dry hop. But anyway, let's dive in. Sierra Nevada pale ale. Oh yes, oh that's nice, that is really nice. There's a mix of citrusy fruity notes. I thought Cascade was just, you know, hard-hitting grapefruit, but this, and I believe it only uses Cascade for flavour and for aroma, this has got a much more complex hop profile. There's some grapefruit there for sure, orange, but there's like a floraliness. I'm picking up like a floraliness from this. Really nice, really, and it's not overly hoppy like I thought it was going to be. In fact, I think by comparison mine's going to be a lot more hoppier than this one. This is actually quite nicely balanced. There's some nice sweetness in the malts, but it's not overly sweet. And then you get these really nice hops coming in with palate. I believe this was first brewed in 1980, and over the, what's that then, 50 years ago, no, 40 years ago, sorry, over that time period American craft beer has completely changed, as we know. But when you think about the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, post-war America, all they were drinking were like your Schlitz or your Miller or your Budweiser. Just these bland, pale, flavourless, light lagers. This, even though by today's standard it's not a hot bomb by any stretch of the imagination, this must have been really different when it first came out in 1980. So much so, of course, it started the craft beer revolution in America. Well, if mine comes out anywhere close to this, I'm going to be happy. I think it's going to be a little bit more punchier with the hops. I don't think this is 40 IBU. It certainly doesn't taste that to me. I'll have to look at what the stats are on the internet, but I would place this in the 30s. But it's nice. It's nice. There's a nice carbonation. Finishes. It doesn't finish bitter at all. It doesn't finish. It's not even that dry. There's a quite watery mouthfeel. Right, so that's it. The classic Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. I'm going to get back to brewing. I've got some tidying up and things to do. In 15 minutes I'm going to add the next edition, so I'll see you then. Okay, I'm back. This is the 45-minute edition, so there's just 15 more minutes now to go in the boil, and it's 20 grams of Cascade, and I've also put a generous teaspoon of Irish moss as a fining agent, and we just simply pop them into the brew kettle. You may notice I'm not using any hop socks today or anything like that. That's because I've decided that I'm just going to throw them in the kettle, and then when I transfer to the fermenter, what I'm doing is using the brew in the bag that I have, that I stick the grains in. I've cleaned that now, washed it, soaking in some Star San to sanitize it, and then basically I just put that into the fermenter and then just transfer into it. And of course that means any hop matter or any bits of grain that still may be in here are going to get trapped in the bag, and I can just pull the bag out and you know, put it on the compost and wash the bag and use it next time. So that's why I'm just throwing in the hops. I've also read this week actually that doing that actually improves hop utilization as well. Sometimes when they're contained in like a hop sock or in a hop spider, and I think I've mentioned about hop spiders before and I haven't had a lot of success with them, they can get trapped, and obviously whatever's at the center of the bag or the spider, you know, it's not giving off any of its bitterness or any of its flavour. So they say the best approach is actually just to throw them in the kettle. And this kettle, and I forgot to put it in today, this kettle has a little filter or a guard just at the other side of the tap, and that stops a lot of the hop matter going into the fermenter. But with the that mesh bag, that brewing a bag, that's going to catch any little debris as well. So that's what I'm doing today. Well, brew day is almost over. The flavour hops have been in there now, boiling for 15 minutes. A few minutes ago I added the rest of the dry malt extract just to pasteurise it. And now I'm going to add the aroma hops, and I want to add them when it's about 80 degrees inside the kettle. Now at the moment I'm not getting an accurate reading because it's boiled all the way down and it's past the probe that goes into the kettle, but I can see here we've got about 9 litres left, so I'm going to have to try and top this up, but that's fine because as I top it up it's going to cool it down, and I want to steep these grains around about 80 degrees, so that's what I'm going to do now. This is just cold water. I want to get it above the probe and then I can start to get a reading of the temperature, and it's now increasing, it's increasing, and there you go, just a few litres, that was all, maybe about 2.5. This is a 5 litre tub and it seems to be settling out at about 80 degrees. What do you know? What I'm going to do now is create a whirlpool because there's a lot of hot matter in that and I don't want that going into the fermenter. So what I'm going to do is create a whirlpool, and this will bring all of that hot matter into the centre. How do you create a whirlpool? Well, you can use your spoon and just keep stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring for about 5 minutes and create a really nice good vortex which will just gather everything up into the centre. Or you can use one of these on a power drill. Look at that. Okay, so I'm just going to create a vortex now. In the water. Ooh, maybe start a bit slower, Andrew. Maybe start a bit slower. There you go. That is spinning nicely now, and so what I'm going to do is add the hops and we'll leave them for 20 minutes at, it is bang on 80 degrees. Look at that. There you go. I'm going to keep the lid on and keep some of that heat inside, and in 20 minutes we're done. What I'll do then is just transfer it to a fermenter, top it up. Well, I'm going to try and chill it in a sink, bring it down to pitching temperature, and it's easier to do when it's only 12 litres rather than 23. Then I'll top it up to 23 litres, and I'm using US-05 for the yeast. So there you go, my brew day is pretty much finished now. Hope you enjoyed watching. And in about a month's time we can taste this beer and see what it tastes like, see if it's anything like the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. It's not exactly the same as far as the recipe is concerned, but I think it will be a good old school American Pale Ale however it turns out. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye bye for now.